Welcome to the Mana Standards podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're going to dive deep into something pretty powerful, I think. This idea of obedience over just relying on our own strength.
It's a concept that really resonates, especially when life gets stormy.
Totally. And we're centering this whole conversation around, well, a classic story, right? Jonah and the sailors.
That's right. Jonah chapter 1, specifically verses, 11 through 13.
Yeah, those key verses. And it gets us thinking, have you ever felt that, deep exhaustion? Not just tired, but soul tired.
Oh, definitely. Like you're constantly paddling against the current, just fighting the waves.
Exactly. So we want to explore today why that might be happening and maybe offer a different approach, a more peaceful one, perhaps.
It's a needed conversation for sure.
So just as we get started, here's something to mull over. When you stop rowing in your own strength and start obeying God's voice, the storms in your life will reveal His power and peace.
That really sets the stage. And in those verses, you see the crisis unfolding, don't you? The storm's raging.
It really is. And the sailors are understandably terrified.
Right. So they turn to Jonah, who they've kind of figured out is the source of the problem.
And they ask him straight up, what do we do to you? How do we make this stop?
It's raw fear talking, isn't it? They're just desperate for a fix, something they can do.
And Jonah's answer is, well, it's pretty direct, unexpected maybe.
He tells them, pick me up and throw me into the sea.
Yeah. And he even says, I know it's my fault this huge storm is on you.
But here's where it gets really interesting, right? Their immediate reaction.
Instead of just doing what he said, what does the scripture tell us?
It says, nevertheless, the men rowed hard.
Rowed harder, trying to get back to land.
Exactly. They defaulted to their own effort, their own strength, their own plan.
Even though Jonah gave them the actual solution.
And the result, they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them.
Wow. So their effort actually made it worse.
It really highlights that human tendency, doesn't it? We lean on what we know, what we can control, or what we think we can control.
Even when facing something clearly supernatural like this storm.
Their plan was logical, in a human sense. Row like crazy, save the ship, save themselves. Maybe they hesitated to, actually throw him overboard. That's a big step.
Sure, it seems extreme. But there's that verse in Proverbs.
Yeah. Proverbs 14.1 Wolf. It fits perfectly here.
There is a way that seems right to a man.
But its end is the way to death. Or destruction in this case. It just underscores how our perception of right isn't always God's right.
Let's really paint that picture of them rowing. Can you imagine these seasoned sailors pouring every last bit of energy into it?
Muscles straining, maybe shouting commands, fighting the wind and waves. Pure physical exertion.
Their intentions were probably good, right? They didn't want to kill Jonah. They wanted to survive.
Absolutely. Seems responsible even.
But the facts are the facts. The sea was getting rougher and rougher.
It just drives home that point. Sometimes our best efforts, even with good intentions, are actually working against what needs to happen.
It's like swimming against a riptide. You just wear yourself out.
That's a great analogy. And it connects straight back to that soul tiredness we talked about.
Yeah, that deep weariness. It's not just physical, is it?
No, it's the exhaustion of striving against the grain, against maybe a divine prompting we're ignoring.
How often does this play out? In our own lives, I mean.
Oh, constantly. Think about relationships.
Right. Deep down, a relationship isn't working, isn't healthy anymore.
But you pour everything into fixing it, right? More talks, more effort, trying to force it.
And it just gets more strained, more exhausting.
Our job. You feel that misalignment, that sense of this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
But you double down. Work harder, longer hours, chase that promotion or satisfaction that never quite comes.
Leading straight to burnout. Because you're rowing against the current of where you maybe should be headed.
It brings up that subtle but huge difference between just working hard and actual obedience.
Yes, we value hard work, perseverance, and those are good things.
Of course, grit is important.
But this story suggests sometimes God isn't asking for more of our sweat. He's asking for our yes, our surrender.
Even if his instruction feels illogical or counterintuitive.
Exactly. Remember 1 Samuel chapter 15.
To obey is better than sacrifice.
And to heed is better than the fat of rams. Plain as day.
Our efforts, our sacrifices of time and energy, they lose their power if they're aimed in the wrong direction, if they're resisting his call.
It's like trying to offer a gift someone didn't ask for when what they really wanted was just for you to listen and do what they said.
So that's the futility of rowing in the wrong direction. But then the shift happens.
Yes, the turning point. They finally stop rowing.
They realize their efforts are useless, maybe worse than useless.
And out of desperation, or maybe dawning realization, they finally listened to Jonah.
Verse 15, so they took Jonah and cast him into the sea.
And the result? Instantaneous.
And the sea ceased from its raging. Just like that.
The speed is incredible. It just slams home the power of obedience.
Their peace, the calm they were desperately rowing for, it wasn't found in their effort.
No, it was found in their surrender. In doing the very thing that probably seemed crazy just moments before.
Throwing a man overboard to calm a storm. It's not logical seamanship.
Not at all. It was spiritual logic, not human logic.
Which suggests sometimes the thing we're clinging to, the thing we think is our safety rope,
Might actually be the anchor weighing us down. The very thing we need to let go of.
it's a powerful thought. Your peace might just be one act of obedience away.
One decision to stop rowing your own boat and trust the instruction.
Which leads right to that personal question for everyone listening, doesn't it?
It really does. What is it for you?
What are you holding on to so tightly? What are you rowing against with all your might?
Could that thing actually be hindering your peace? Going against God's nudge?
What do you need to metaphorically throw overboard today?
It's a challenging question. And it's important to add a layer here.
Okay.
Not every storm is our fault, right?
That's true. Sometimes we're caught in the fallout of someone else's choices.
Like the sailors. They weren't the ones running from God initially. Jonah was.
But they were still in the same boat, facing the same storm.
Exactly. So this introduces the idea of storms as tests, opportunities even.
Okay, how so?
Even if the storm isn't because of your disobedience, your response to it becomes the test.
Ah, I see. Will you react with human logic? Just try harder. Row harder.
Or will you pause, seek God's wisdom, and be willing to obey, even if it feels backward or risky?
That reminds me of James chapter 1.
Yes. Verses 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy.
Whenever you face trials of many kinds, it sounds counterintuitive, right? Joy in trials.
It does. But James explains why. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance.
Right. And perseverance leads to maturity.
So even storms we didn't cause can be used by God to develop something crucial in us: endurance, faith, maturity.
So the storm might not be your fault, but it can be your opportunity to choose obedience and grow.
Precisely. It shifts the focus from why me to what now, God?
That changes everything. It moves from victimhood to, well, active participation with God in the storm.
Which ties into this idea of redirection, doesn't it?
Yeah, that comes up in Isaiah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 55.
Mm-hmm. Verses 8 and 9. God's thoughts and ways being higher than ours.
For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord.
As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
So if God allows a storm, even one caused by others or just, life,
His ultimate purpose isn't destruction, it's development or direction.
He's not trying to sink us. He might be trying to steer us.
Exactly. Gently, or maybe sometimes, like with Jonah, more forcefully, guiding us onto his path, which might look totally different from our map.
And this is where we got to be honest with ourselves.
About what?
About our persistence. Is it godly perseverance or is it something else?
You mean pride disguised as persistence? That refusal to let go of our own plan?
Yeah, that relentless rowing, thinking we know the way back to shore. Maybe God's pointing to a different shore entirely.
It's a subtle trap. We admire determination, but is it determination rooted in faith or in self-reliance?
Because the peace we're all looking for, that deep soul rest,
It rarely comes from the frantic activity of rowing harder.
it comes from humility, doesn't it? From saying, okay, God, your way, even if I don't get it right now.
That's the obedience piece.
Yeah.
Trusting his higher ways.
And the results of that obedience, that surrender, they go way beyond just stopping the storm.
Oh, absolutely. Look back at Jonah, chapter 1, verse 16. It's easy to miss this part.
After they throw Jonah in and the sea calms down, what happens to the sailors?
Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly,
Exceedingly. Not just relief, but deep reverence. Awe.
and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows.
Wow. So their obedience didn't just save their lives, it led them to encounter God himself.
That's the incredible transformative power. They went from terrified pagans trying to appease an angry sea god essentially.
To worshipers of the one true God, making commitments to him.
It shows that our obedience glorifies God in a way our self-reliant efforts never can.
When we let go of the oars, when we release control.
We make room for his power, his presence, his glory to show up.
It reminds me of Philippians 4 about praying and giving anxieties to God.
And experiencing that peace that transcends all understanding. It guards your heart and mind.
It's the peace that comes not from figuring it all out, but from trusting the one who has it all figured out.
So the closing charge, really, for all of us listening.
God isn't waiting to be impressed by how hard you can row.
No, he's not measuring your strength or your stamina in the storm.
What he desires, what he's looking for, is your surrender, your willingness to trust his voice above the waves.
That act of releasing control, of choosing obedience even when it feels risky or illogical.
That's the act of faith that opens the door.
Opens the door for his peace, his power, and ultimately, his glory to be revealed right there in your situation.
So it really brings us back to those personal questions for you listening right now.
Yeah. Take a moment. What are you holding on to? Gripping those oars for dear life.
Where are you rowing with everything you've got, but maybe against his current?
Is it possible you've mistaken sheer effort for true obedience?
What might God be gently, or maybe not so gently, asking you to release, to surrender?
And try to imagine it.
Yeah.
What would that peace actually feel like? The peace that comes not from finally reaching your shore, but from obeying his direction.
It's something to really sit with, isn't it?
Definitely. The call is to pause the striving, still the internal noise for a minute.
And just ask him, God, what are you asking me to let go of? Where do you want my yes right now?
Prayerfully consider what obedience looks like in your storm. It might be different than you think.
And remember, he doesn't waste these storms. They aren't just obstacles.
No, they're opportunities. For redirection, yes. For testing and growth, absolutely.
But ultimately, for a deeper encounter with him, just like those sailors experienced.
Amen to that.
So maybe the most empowering thought we can leave you with today is this. Choose obedience. Choose trust over the sheer exhaustion of rowing in your own strength.
Trust his voice, even when it's quiet, even when the storm is loud.
Believe that his way, the way of obedience, leads to a peace you can't manufacture on your own.
A peace that truly surpasses all understanding.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on the Manna Standards podcast.